There's one sentence that can end disrespect instantly. No shouting, no explaining, no proving yourself. Just 7 words that shift the power dynamic so completely that people feel it in their bones. But here's the catch: say anything more after it, and you'll destroy everything. Most people never learn this because they think disrespect is about someone being rude to them. But that's not what's really happening. Disrespect isn't about rudeness at all. It's about access. Access to your attention, access to your emotional labor, access to your need to be understood and validated. The moment you begin explaining yourself, you hand that access over freely. And that's precisely why disrespect repeats itself. Not because you deserve it, not because they're more powerful, but because, in a small and silent way, your reaction teaches them the rules of engagement. It usually doesn't begin as an obvious insult or attack. It starts as a joke that stings just a little, a tone that cuts slightly, a little public jab, a comment that makes you feel heat behind your eyes, a tightness in your throat, that split-second urge to fix the awkwardness so everyone can move on comfortably. Most people do exactly what the other person is hoping for. They rush, they defend, they clarify, they soften their words and tone. They try to prove they're reasonable and mature. And in doing that, they train the pattern to continue. But there is a calm line that ends the pattern immediately because it removes the one thing disrespect needs to survive and thrive: your availability. Stay with me, because in a moment, I'll give you the exact sentence. And more importantly, I'll show you why it works so fast, why it feels so final, and why saying anything more right after it can undo everything you've accomplished. Principle 1. Why disrespect keeps coming back. It's comforting to believe disrespect comes from bad people, from villains, from someone with no manners or upbringing. Because if it's all about them, you don't have to look at your role in the pattern. But psychology is harsher and more useful than that. Most disrespect is conditioned behavior. People test first. They don't announce it with a speech or declaration. They drop something small and watch what happens next. A slight dig, a dismissive relax, a sarcastic laugh when you speak, a question asked in a way that makes you look small or foolish. Then they study your response carefully. Do you smile to keep the peace? Do you over-explain your intention? Do you laugh along, even though you didn't find it funny? Do you rush to prove you're not offended or hurt? To them, that's data. Not conscious, not always malicious, but human behavior is simple at its core. What works gets repeated. If a jab costs nothing, it becomes a habit. If a boundary blurs, it gets crossed again. If you absorb discomfort to protect the mood, you become the place where discomfort gets dumped regularly. And the brutal part is this: the person doesn't need to hate you for the pattern to continue. They only need to learn that you'll tolerate it without consequence. That's why disrespect follows access. Access to your reactions. Access to your need to fix the moment. Access to your emotional energy and time. If they can push and you'll absorb, they keep pushing harder. So the real question isn't, how do I make them respect me? The question is, what kind of access have I been giving away? Principle 2. The 3 traps in the moment. Disrespect happens fast. Your body reacts before your mind can form a clean response. Your heart rate jumps. Your thoughts speed up. Your mouth wants to move immediately so you can stop feeling exposed and vulnerable. That's where most people fall into one of 3 traps. Trap 1 is arguing. Arguing feels strong. It feels like self-respect and standing up for yourself. But most arguments are not power. They're pursuit. You're chasing logic. You're trying to be understood. You're trying to win a courtroom in the other person's head. And the moment you start chasing, you've already given away the frame of the interaction. Trap 2 is joking it off. Humor can be elegant, but laughing it off when you're actually uncomfortable isn't elegance. It's a cover. That's you swallowing the boundary and calling it maturity, or being easygoing. And the other person learns something very simple. You'll take it without pushing back. Trap 3 is freezing. Silence can be powerful, but not the silence that comes from fear or uncertainty. That kind of silence is loud. People can feel it. Your posture changes, your eyes shift, your energy collapses inward, and fear is readable to others. Here's what matters. The fastest reaction sets the tone of the whole interaction. When you react instantly, you validate the moment. You confirm it deserves your energy and attention. Power dynamics work like this. The person who controls the pace controls the interaction. And that's why the biggest mistake isn't speaking up. It's speaking too fast without thinking. High-status behavior is measured, minimal, deliberate. Not because the person is cold, but because delay signals choice, and choice signals power. If your response is rushed, it's emotional. If it's measured, it's intentional. And disrespect can't negotiate with intention the way it negotiates with emotion. Principle 3, the Stoic logic of calm power. The Stoics understood something most people still struggle to live by. You don't control what happens to you, but you control what gets access to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about guarding the mind not by building walls, but by choosing what deserves entry into your consciousness. Epictetus was even more direct. Some things are up to you and some things aren't. Your response is yours. Their behavior isn't yours to control. That isn't passive. That's power. Because when someone disrespects you, they're expecting movement. They're expecting a reaction. They're expecting you to change shape around their behavior, either exploding or shrinking or explaining yourself. Calm disrupts that expectation completely. Psychologically, calm signals certainty. Certainty signals authority. Authority doesn't rush. It doesn't compete. It doesn't plead its case to anyone. And that is deeply uncomfortable for someone who depends on getting a reaction from you. Disrespect feeds on imbalance and emotional reactivity. If you flare up, they gain leverage over you. If you fold inward, they gain leverage over you. But if nothing shifts in you, no visible emotional leak, they lose the handle they were grabbing for. This is what frame control looks like in practice. The centered person decides what matters. And here's the key. Silence alone can do it. But silence with intention does it faster because it creates a pause that feels heavy in the room. Humans hate a vacuum. We rush to fill it. We scramble to regain control of the situation. That's why a calm pause can shift a room more than a loud comeback ever could. But you don't always want only silence. Sometimes you want one clean sentence that locks the boundary in place firmly. One sentence, no debate. Because finality is the one thing disrespectful behavior can't stand. Principle 4. The one sentence. Here it is. Say it once calmly and then stop. I don't accept being spoken to like that. That's it. No extra lines, no insults, no lecture, no history lesson, no because statement, no explanation of your childhood wounds, no dramatic threat or ultimatum. I don't accept being spoken to like that. This works because every part of it is engineered for maximum impact. I means you're owning your boundary. You're not attacking their identity. You're not labeling them a bad person. You're talking about what you allow in your life. Don't accept is not the same as don't like. It's not, I feel uncomfortable with this. Those phrases invite negotiation and discussion. Accept communicates decision, finality, choice. Being spoken to like that targets the behavior, not the person. You're not calling them rude or disrespectful. You're not escalating the situation. You're simply naming the line they crossed. That's why it's so hard for them to argue with it effectively. If they argue, they expose themselves. If they mock it, they reveal the kind of person they are. Either way, you stop carrying the burden of the interaction. Now, delivery matters more than volume or intensity. Say it slowly. Neutral face, relaxed shoulders, no smile, no anger, no apology in your tone. Your body should look like the sentence is obvious and non-negotiable. Timing matters too. Say it immediately after the disrespect, not hours later in a message or text. Immediate boundaries train faster and more effectively. And the most important part is what happens next. You stop talking because, the second you start explaining, you take a clean boundary and turn it into a discussion or debate. If you add, "I'm just saying this because I've been stressed lately," you invite them to judge your reason for the boundary. If you add, "You probably didn't mean it," you soften the line before it even lands. If you add, "Please," you turn a standard into a request that can be declined. You don't need them to agree with you. You need the boundary to exist, so you say it once. Then you let silence do what it does best. Force reality to show itself. And this is where most people ruin it, because the next few seconds can feel uncomfortable. And your nervous system will beg you to repair the moment. Don't do it. Principle 5. What happens after you say it? Expect predictable reactions. First is shock. They weren't expecting calm resistance, especially not from someone who usually explains or apologizes. Then comes the retreat disguised as a joke. "I was just kidding around." Or the classic reversal, "You're too sensitive about everything." That's not a logical argument, it's a test. They're checking if they still have access to the old version of you, the version that fixes the mood by sacrificing the boundary. Sometimes they'll smirk. Sometimes they'll change the subject quickly. Sometimes they'll get quiet. That quiet is important. Awkward silence after a boundary does not mean you did something wrong. It means the old pattern just broke, and the system is recalibrating itself. You might feel guilty afterward. Your mind might start producing reasons to soften it. Maybe I was harsh. Maybe I should clarify my position. Maybe I should send a follow-up so they don't think I'm mad at them. That impulse is people-pleasing wearing a mask of maturity. And people-pleasing is exactly what trained the disrespect in the first place. Let the awkwardness exist. Let them sit with the consequence of their tone. Let the room feel heavy for a moment. Seneca warned about becoming a servant to the opinions of others. The fastest way to become that servant is to rush to repair any tension you didn't create. You didn't create the disrespect. You created the boundary. And boundaries can feel cold to people who were benefiting from your warmth. Sometimes, after that sentence, their tone softens. They correct themselves. They back off immediately. Sometimes they keep distance afterward. If they distance themselves because you set a basic standard, that's not a loss. That's alignment, because you're not trying to keep everyone close. You're deciding who gets access to you. Principle 6. When saying nothing is stronger. Not every moment deserves that sentence. Some people don't disrespect you to dominate you. They disrespect you to provoke you into reacting. They want the reaction. They want the emotional content. They want engagement and attention. In those moments, words can feed the game they're playing. That's when silence is the better weapon. Not freezing silence, but chosen silence. You don't glare at them. You don't sigh. You don't roll your eyes. You simply remove participation from the interaction. No explanation. No visible emotional leak. You continue as if the bait didn't exist at all. This confuses provocateurs because there's nothing to push against. Here's the difference. Boundaries are for patterns. Disengagement is for noise. If someone crosses a line once, you can state the boundary clearly. If they repeat the same behavior after you've been clear, the next message doesn't need more words. The next message is distance, because repeating the sentence too often turns strength into performance. You don't perform your standards, you live them consistently. High self-respect doesn't announce itself repeatedly, it's observed by others. So use the sentence when you feel invaded. when the line is real, when the moment calls for a clear stop. Use silence when the moment is bait or provocation. Either way, your goal is the same. Control access to your energy. Because respect was never about being liked by everyone. It was about being clear with your standards. You don't gain power by explaining yourself better or more thoroughly. You gain power by deciding what you accept. When you stop reacting, you start choosing. Choosing your tone, choosing your pace, choosing your standards, and that changes everything in your life. Conversations slow down. People adjust their behavior. Some people disappear from your life. Others show up differently with more respect. The world starts treating you the way your boundaries train it to treat you. So remember the line, I don't accept being spoken to like that. Say it once. Mean it. Then let your silence prove you weren't negotiating. If this hits you, you already know where you need it. Comment below where you'll use this sentence first. Work, family, friends. And if you want more strategies for calm power, boundaries, and emotional control, your life gets better when you build the habit of protecting your inner peace and growing in maturity quietly, consistently, every day. Descrizione. 1 sentence, 7 words. Game over. Discover the sentence that stops disrespect instantly. No yelling, no explanations, no drama. Just one clear boundary that shifts the power dynamic in seconds. In this video, you'll learn why disrespect keeps repeating and how to stop it. The 3 fatal mistakes everyone makes when disrespected. The exact sentence to say and why it works so well. When to use silence instead of words. How people will start treating you differently. This isn't about being aggressive, it's about being clear. When you stop reacting, you start choosing. And when you start choosing, everything changes. Drop a comment. Where will you use this sentence first? Work, family, or friends? Subscribe for more content on boundaries, calm power, and personal growth.